Schönen guten Morgen und good morning. Nice to have you here. Last chance to grab yourself a cup of coffee or tea. We're gonna begin very, very soon. Just some more seconds left. Just drop a hello or hallo in the chat window. My colleague Stephanie Dietrich is for sure gonna welcome you back at the chat window. Welcome to our first virtual open day. Welcome to Deutsche Schule Melbourne. My name is Johanna Fries. I'm the marketing coordinator at Deutsche Schule Melbourne, and I'll lead you through our online session today. We're all very excited to have you with us during our second virtual open day this morning. Before we start, I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and pay my respect to their elders, past, present, and emerging. I extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Islander people here today. So, as you can see, you can only see me and some of my other colleagues very shortly. So how you can participate during today's virtual open day is really using the chat window. As I've seen, a lot of people have already said hello via the chat window, and then you can, throughout the whole virtual open day, ask questions at the Q&A section. And we will get to these questions at the end of our virtual open day. So I really encourage you to use the Q&A section, and if you have any kind of troubleshooting, you can't hear me, or sometimes the Wi-Fi breaks down or something, just make a comment in the chat window, and then my colleague Stephanie Dietrich will try to support you from there. So first of all, I would like to know a bit who is in the room today. And we thought we're going to do this in an interactive way. So we're going to do a poll, and we're going to start with the first poll, which is regarding your child and when your child will start school. So you should see the polling now appearing on your screen, and you can just choose one of the answers, when your child starts school, and just click on it within the next 2 years, or within the next 2 to 4 years, or even within more than 4 years, and just choose your answer here. And then the results are anonymous, and they're going to just be shared with all of us so that we know who's in the audience. I see 70% has already voted, so I just encourage the last 20% now to vote, and then I'll just share the results on the screen so you actually see, learn a bit more about who's in the audience today. Fantastic. I'm just going to give it another few seconds, but almost everyone has already voted. So I'll just share the results with you on the screen. So we actually have, which is great, a lot of participants today, 64%, which actually start school in 2 years. And the family language is English, almost half, almost 50%, and English German, and a smaller percent only German. So that's great. Amazing to have you all here. And I'll just stop sharing the results. I hope everyone saw it, and then we're going to continue with our presentation. So first of all, I would like to introduce our speakers today. We have our principal, Bernice Ressel, with us today.
Einen wunderschönen guten Morgen zusammen.
Then we have our deputy principal, Mary Gallivan. with us today.
Good morning, everybody.
We have Christina Remstadt, who can't be with us today, and then Alana King, our curriculum coordinator and specialist teacher with us.
Good morning, everyone.
Barbara Walsh, our business manager. And Stephanie Dietrich, our admissions manager.
Guten Morgen.
Good morning, Steffi. And then I'm really excited about our special guest, Dr. Avril Breve. Nice to have you here, Abby.
Good morning, everyone.
Cool. Now that we know who is from our side participating, I would like to go to today's agenda. So we're going to have, first of all, a short introduction and welcome from our principal, Bernice Ressel, and then she's going to give you some more insights about the bilingual school concept. We have a virtual school tour for you, short introduction to our teaching team, and one of my personal highlights is rather like the second part where we have the live talk of Dr. Avril Breve, and also a live interview about our current bilingual remote learning program. As I think most of you are aware, Melbourne is still in lockdown, so I think it's very valuable to share our first-hand insights about the bilingual remote learning program. Then we're going to have some insights about the enrollment process, and we're going to finish off with the Q&A session. As I said before, I really encourage you to leave your questions during the open day at the Q&A section, so that we can answer them at the end of the section. And now I would like to hand over to Bernice for the welcome and introduction and the bilingual school concept.
Vielen Dank, Johanna. Ja, auch von mir ein herzliches Willkommen zu unserem zweiten Virtual Open Day. So welcome everyone to our second Virtual Open Day. It's a pleasure to have you all here. My name is Bernice Ressel. I'm the principal and I also teach music and religious education at Deutsche Schule Melbourne. I'm going to give you some information, but also some examples what immersion looks like in our foundation year. But first of all, as you have read, our school is a bilingual school, which is awesome because bilingualism has a lot of benefits. For example, problem solving and decision-making skills are just more enhanced in bilingual learners. Intercultural and communication competencies as well, and also mathematical and reading comprehension is way advanced in bilingual learners. Our school has an immersion model. That means the children receive quite an intensive volume of German, around 80%. That allows the children to immerse themselves in the language. At the beginning, a much smaller proportion is taught in English language, but over time, the German proportion will be reduced and we'll have an equal mix by grade 6 of English and German, but we're also introducing French as a load subject as well. The great thing about the immersion concept is that foundation year students don't necessarily need to have a previous knowledge of German. I will explain later why that is the case. Under specific circumstances, it can also be possible to join our school at a later stage, even as a monolingual family. We usually have a good talk with the family and with the class teacher and see what we can do to make it possible for children to join our school in, say, year 3, 4, even 5. I'm going to tell you a little bit about our curriculum as well, because we actually have to use 2 curricula. So we have a combination of the curriculum of Thuringia in Germany and also the Victorian curriculum. Those 2 are quite easy to merge because there are no major differences in the general competencies that we expect of our learners. But when there are differences, we usually adopt the higher level, which might be the case in the German curriculum for mathematics. but also topic-wise, there are differences in integrated studies. We do have a nice knights and castles and medieval studies for the European side of things, but also, of course, there are Aboriginal and Indigenous studies for the Victorian curriculum. Our school books for the German subjects are from Germany and are native level school books. The reason for all this is that we are an accredited German school abroad, as well as a registered primary school in Victoria. So we fulfill requirements for both countries to make sure we can offer a smooth transition into either Australian or German school systems, and also German schools abroad. Now I want to tell you a little bit about what language learning looks like at our school, because it's not like you would expect in a language school. Instead, language learning at Deutsche Schule Melbourne is integrated into all subjects. So the children learn new words through games, songs, stories, and they do learn the words that they need to speak about a certain topic. The children can understand the meaning of a sentence without necessarily needing to understand every single word. I know that a lot of monolingual English-speaking families or bilingual families worry that children who don't speak German can't understand the native speakers. But that's actually not the case. Our teachers adjust the way they speak so all children can understand what they mean. That means we speak slowly, we use a lot of pictures and gestures, and also facial expressions, as you might see already, because I'm doing it all the time. I've got some examples for you with me today, just to give you an idea how the immersion works, for example, in foundation year. We have a lot of rituals in the foundation year, and the first thing that we do in the morning is we talk about our calendar. So we talk about what day is it today, what day it is today, but because we're in Melbourne and it's always an exciting topic, we talk about the weather. And for example, I would say, schau aus dem Fenster, wie ist das Wetter heute? And then I would have different options. For example, es ist sonnig, or es ist bewölkt. Es ist teils sonnig und teils wolkig. Or in the worst case, es regnet. Wie ist das Wetter? And then I would choose a child. It doesn't really matter which language background they're from. If it's a German child, of course, they would answer in German. If there's an English-speaking child, they would probably answer in English. And while normally the so-called teacher echo is not a good idea, but in this case, the child would say, it is sunny. I would say, ja, du hast recht, es ist sonnig. And by the time, at some point, they will pick up the es ist sonnig and they will answer in German eventually. The same thing, for example, can work in math. Of course, math is a very visual subject in the lower year levels anyways. So I actually went into Frau Naumann's classroom and borrowed some Steckwürfel. So in math, I would probably say, wie viele rote Steckwürfel habe ich? And it would be perfectly fine for somebody to say 5. But then I would say, richtig, 5. And maybe have them repeat the number. And then I would ask, wie viele blaue Steckwürfel habe ich? And they would answer accordingly. And very soon I have my first calculation. So 5 plus 3 ist wie viel? So you see, it's very visual anyways. And to be honest, the whole gestures and facial expressions become so second nature to all of us that it really also happens in private life. So I would catch myself meeting friends and say things like, um 3 Uhr, wir treffen uns auf einen Kaffee. So it's just happening very natural for all of us, and the kids pick it up really quickly. However, all our teachers are bilingual and fluent in both languages, so we have the one teacher, one language concept, and that means we teach only in our native language, but we absolutely understand everything the kids say. In general, we also aim for an individualized program, so every student can work on their own level, at their own speed. And we also strongly believe in the concepts of inclusion, togetherness, and community. That's also reflected in our school values. These are kindness, patience, honesty, respect, and trust. And they are the basis for our goal of the week. Every week we would have a goal which all the students would work towards, and at the end of the week we would choose the student of the week. And that is something that we also did during the remote learning phase. So these values, plus our academic approach, our strong curriculum, and the highly qualified staff empower us to fulfill our mission. We want to help our students to realize their individual potential and become creative and confident participants in the global community. It's very important to us to inspire our students, to inspire them to be independent and creative, and also to nurture their understanding, care, and respect for others, and of course to challenge them as well. They should do their best academically and also take on different perspectives and live sustainably. And now I wish us all a fabulous second virtual open day and hand over to my Deputy Teaching and Learning, Mary Gallivan.
Good morning, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. Lovely to meet you. My name is Mary Gallivan and I am one of the Deputy Principals at Deutsche Schule Melbourne. And it is my great pleasure today to take you on a virtual school tour. Welcome to the Deutsche Schule Melbourne. Let's explore our school. Kiss and go. This is where our students say goodbye to their parents and come to learn. Let's look inside. I wonder what's behind the curtains. Let's go explore. This is where the magic takes place. This is the platypus classroom. There are year ones. We have interactive whiteboards. And beautiful pin boards so that we can display student work and move them around and even open them up to a bigger new classroom. Come through and have a look. This is where our quokkas live. They are our foundation year students in their first year of schooling. They have special quiet areas where they might like to read a story together or look at their daily schedule. Then they can post about activities that they've been doing, celebrate birthdays, and even bring their storybooks to life. Some of you might recognize this story that they've brought to life in the aquarium here. This is where the students say kiss and choose, and they head upstairs. Let's go and visit the dingoes. We are the dingoes. This is the Year 4 classroom. And you can see they have lots of different corners, and you can notice that their teacher is especially musical. Let's explore our music pod. Come inside. This is where our instrumental music lessons take place, where we have specialized music teachers who teach a whole range of instruments. We even celebrate Carnival in Australia and our students help us to display our school values in a creative way around the school. Let's look at the library. We have a range of books in both languages, and we even have books in French, as our Year 5s and 6s learn French. During the break time, the kids love to play on our play equipment or even on our sports ground. We had a multicultural project, and the students created pictures of themselves and created profiles about where they come from. We're also a very active school, and we have lots of students who come to school, so we have lots of bike racks. And this is our wonderful sports ground where students can play all different kinds of sports, and they can relax in the shade if they want to during the warmer summer months. It's my great pleasure to introduce our classroom teachers to you all. As you can see from the picture, we have Australian animals to represent each of our classes. We start with the small quokkas in the foundation year level with Frau Naumann, and we move up to the echidnas and the platypus with Frau Damasi and Frau Remetzer in year 1. Then our animals get a bit bigger with the wombats and the koalas with Frau Ohlmeyer and Frau Zirke in year 2. And then we go upstairs to the bigger wallabies with Herr Gabler in year 3. And then, as you saw in the video, Herr Tepper, our musical teacher, teaches the year 4s. And then we move up to the emus with Frau Kardau in year 5. And finally, we have our big sharks, the great white sharks, as our year 6s with Ms. Burgers. So these are our classroom teachers, and it's a pleasure to see them. We'll move on to our specialist teachers. These are teachers who teach a range of different subjects. We have our English teaching team with Ms. Kemmer, Ms. King, who you'll meet shortly, who also teaches French. We have Ms. Slaughter, and then we have Frau Kaltschetz, who teaches library, and she also is one of the DSD teachers in the afternoon program for our secondary school students. And we have Frau Frenkler, who is our individual needs teacher, who works with students in small groups and individually to help support them where they need extra support.
Thank you very much, Mary, for the school tour and also for introducing our lovely teachers. Now, I would like to warmly welcome our expert and to our live talk, Dr. Avril Graves. She holds a PhD in applied linguistics, and she has been actually part of the Deutsche Schule Melbourne since the beginning and played an integral part of setting up the bilingual school concept of Deutsche Schule Melbourne. Let me warmly welcome Dr. Avril Graves. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Yeah, lovely to see you all here today. I'm just going to share my screen. I've got a very short presentation for you, and I guess if you have questions, we can look at those at the end. But I wanted to talk very briefly today about really language acquisition in a school context, what happens, what you can expect. And this, given the lovely poll that we had beforehand, this can apply to both children who are exposed to any language at home, whether it's English only, another language, and German, any language constellation works. So to get started, Bernice already mentioned some of the benefits of being multilingual. So multilingual being more than one language. It can be 2, it can be 5, it can be 3, it can be any number of languages that children are very capable of learning, even though some of us as adults think that's incredibly impossible. Kids are great at working out patterns in language. That's what they're born to do, and then separating them into their different usages. So multilingualism, we know from research, has a number of benefits. Those we usually split into 3 areas: cognitive benefits, The cognitive benefits are usually focusing on basically a multilingual child's ability to suppress information in their brain, which sounds a little bit counterintuitive. But really, if we see the brain as a muscle, and we know that language lights up parts of our brain. And so, for example, when you have the word table, or you hear the word table, which hopefully you're all hearing now, all of the words that your brains associate with that word table will highlight in your brain. So you'll think of chair, you might think of wood, you might think of all sorts of other things in English that are associated with that word. And to retrieve that word table and then to speak it, you need to suppress the wood and the chair and come out with the word table. If you're a bilingual or a multilingual child, you don't just have all of those semantic fields or those words linked to the word table in your head, but you have all of the other ones in the other language. So for example, a bilingual child in German and English would have Tisch and table coming up, and then all of the words that are linked to that word. So that bilingual child is very, very well trained to suppress all of the English words that are being highlighted in their brain and all of the other German words that are associated with the word to come up with the word Tisch in one context and the word table in another. So they're very, very, it's basically like a muscle work, a gym work for the brain, this suppression. And we know that bilingual children are very good at suppressing irrelevant information. That then links to problem solving. So if you're solving perhaps a mathematical problem, you have to find within that mathematical problem the key areas that you need to focus on. And what you need then to do is suppress irrelevant information from that. So for example, in a primary school context, you have a little text and it says, mother duck and her 3 ducklings crossed the road, 1 got left behind, how many ducks were left? It was a lovely sunny day. The bilingual children seem to be much better than the children with one language to then suppress the fact that it was a sunny day, not worry about the ducks being yellow, but being able to focus on the fact that there were 3 ducks initially, baby ducklings, and 1 got left, which means there were 2 that went across the road. I can't remember the problem I just made up, but I think you get the idea. Some other experience we do with bilingual children are things like being quite flexible in thought patterns. So for example, a bilingual child, because they know there's these 2 words, say for table, but it doesn't change the table, they're very good at being flexible with language. So if you asked a bilingual child, can you call a dog a cow? And they'll say, yeah, you can call a dog a cow, because in German you can call them Hund or dog, or if you've got French or any other language. So they're basically very good at being flexible in language, which is very good, certainly for the learning of literacy, so reading and writing, and doing things in language. Social benefits of being multilingual. I think the most important one of this is this idea of being a language mediator. So bilingual children who are growing up in multilingual environments, which is very important, so you have different people with different language abilities, often become language mediators. So they're able to understand that someone else is not silly because they don't speak another language, or is different and may need assistance in their language learning or their expression, certainly in a school environment. And that really brings a very strong social understanding of difference as being not something that is bad. Cultural acceptance is linked to that, of course, that they're more able to accept the fact that people do things differently. If you can do things differently in language, then you can do things differently in other ways. And that, of course, prepares bilingual children or multilingual children for a sort of living in our global village, which has shrunk a little bit at the moment, I must admit. So if you are looking at your child to become bilingual or multilingual, many parents really worried that the language that is spoken the most in the community is going to fall away. So in the case of Australia, we have a very strong English speaking environment in which we grow up in. And it's obvious that that child or your child needs to have very strong English skills to be able to function in society and contribute to Australian society, and also on a global scale as well. The issue is that that language, which is what I've called the majority language here, weights are being put in its scale the whole time. Weights are always putting in to assist that child's learning. Children are very, very good at implicit learning. They pick up language everywhere, which I'm sure for those of you who have children, you've noticed that you hear this word and you go, where on earth did you pick up that word? I didn't give it to you. Was it when we were getting, you know, bread at Baker's Delight? How is it that that child picked up that word and is now using it as an active part of their vocabulary? So in a majority language English speaking environment, your children are picking up language all the time. When you talk to the neighbour across the fence, when you go shopping, obviously when they're at school or in kindergarten or at a play centre, all that language around them, they're sort of taking into their brains and forming patterns of language. They're using that as their data to learn English. If you want them to speak and learn another language, that's where you're going to have to be focusing on actively putting weights in the scale of that language so that they even out. So if you would like your child to be multilingual, especially in Australia, you're going to have to be, as a parent, very, very active of sort of counterbalancing that input that they're getting in English. So for example, organising bilingual play groups, going for extended trips overseas. I know that's a really stupid one to put in there at the moment because none of us are going anywhere. Having play dates with other multilingual children or children that speak that language, playing with your child in that language, obviously. Having a nanny who's multilingual. There are all sorts of things you can do to make sure that that scale somehow evens up against all of that input that they're getting in English. These, of course, have different weights. So you can either combine a lot of weights to even that scale out, or you can put some really big weights in. And we know that immersion schooling is one of those big weights. You're going to get a lot of bang for your buck by putting an immersion schooling into that minority language side than you would say if you just watched films in English, I think, in German or whatever language it's going to be. So really your role, once you've decided to go down a multilingual track for your children, is to keep focusing on that side of the scale. The other one will work itself out if they're active in Australian English speaking society. So let's have a look at language development schools. So often we think, oh, my child, for example, my children, they spoke really great German. When they were 5, when they were going to school, their German was near native-like, if not native speakers of German. Really, they've already got the language, but in fact they don't. School is a massive space for learning and an even bigger space for language learning. So throughout your child's schooling years, they will probably add more than 3,000 of words per year to their vocabularies. So times that by 13 years of schooling, including foundation year, that's a lot of vocabulary that they're picking up through those schooling years. What we see happen with children's language at school throughout their whole schooling is that their language becomes more their own. They start to sound less and less like you as a parent. Their facial expressions will become their own. They're choosing words that they feel are best suited to their own identities. For better or for worse, they start to speak their language as it suits their personalities. What is really clear in schools, which I always find really interesting, children also started to sound a little bit like their teachers, right? So initially they'll sound very much like their parents. They'll use the same inflections, the same accents, the same ways of putting words together. You'll find when your child goes to primary school, they might sound a little bit like their teachers. And this is really key to an immersion schooling context. Certainly for those children without the other language at home, they will be picking up so much input from that teacher. They become, certainly in primary school, the teachers are infallible, and they will be taking in all of that new language from their teachers. So this is really important for an immersion setting where your child might actually not speak the language at their home, but can move in and they've got a great resource for language through their teachers and obviously their peers. Children at school also become more and more able to talk about language. So instead of what we call meta-language awareness, is their ability not just to speak the language and use it, but actually talk about the language while using the language. This is also a skill that for children who have had another language before they reach their schooling years are often quite strong on, because they've already been learning two systems of languages. They're much more aware that language is a system that you can talk about. And this meta-language awareness is incredibly important for a child to learn to read and to write. That you suddenly see that your language becomes a different system, and the sound of a word is not necessarily related to what the object actually is. Worldviews also change. They start reading about the life cycle of whales. They taught to reading and having input about all sorts of things that are actually not even in their immediate sphere. So literacy in books really increases their language development and really increases their ability to talk of things about things that are not in their immediate environment. So with that, clearly if your child is a multilingual speaker and then it ends up in an English only speaking environment, those weights in that scale that you're going to have to put in to maintain the language you're speaking at home are going to have to be really heavy, and there's going to be a lot of them until the child reaches about 18 years of age. So immersion school models, really we usually talk about two. So an immersion school, I think it's actually the definition is anything that's 20% or more of the minority language qualifies as an immersion school. But the two really strong models of immersion are ones that have 50% or more in the minority language. Some schools will start, which is the red line on this slide, with 50% say English and 50% German from prep all the way through. So the children will be doing half their subjects or half their time, depends on how the school does it, in the minority language and half the time in the local language. The other model is the 90-10 model, which is the one that the Deutsche Schule Melbourne follows, which is where you have a lot of schooling in the minority language in those early years, where so much language is being picked up. So at the DSM, 90% of the teaching is in German from prep and grade 1. So the children are getting lots and lots of input in German, and gradually more and more English is introduced as the kids start to do NAPLAN, start to transition into a high school environment, which unfortunately is mostly monolingual at this stage. The advantage of this 90-10 model links back to those social skills of the children. So in a 90-10 model, you can have a really great mix of language abilities in a classroom. So you can have children who come in with no German, in this case, at all. You can have children who come in with some German and some English. You can have some children coming in with only German. There's a whole mix of abilities. And your aim with the 90% is to bring up the abilities of all the children to a minority language, that they don't have to have the same abilities, but that they can all function equally as well in the additional language. And the children then have lovely opportunities to be language mediators for each other. So if you have a one teacher, one language policy, it's the children who start to also help the other children to understand what's going on. So they're constantly working their two languages all the time. And you might have a lesson in English where the children who are stronger in German need assistance from the children who are stronger in English language, or you might have a lesson in German where the children who are stronger in German are helping out those in English. So there's a lovely opportunity there for schools to really work on not only language development, but that social use of language and those social skills of mediation. I'm sure I'm going to run out of time very soon, but immersion schooling outcomes, many parents often worry that their children is not going to do as well as other children who are working, for example, in Australia on the Australian curriculum. It does sometimes take time, so these children may need a little bit of catch-up time, but after 4 to 7 years of a child being in an immersion language school, including those children who come in without any ability in the minority language. They tend to, after about 4 to 7 years, actually outperform children who have been monolingually educated in a whole range of subjects. This includes reading. So these children have usually been taught to read in both languages, which actually helps each other, maths, science and social studies. All children, as I said before, who are in an immersion program will demonstrate high levels of the local language. They are still using that on a day-to-day basis on public transport, at the bakery, talking to the neighbours, all of that. So the majority language is never an issue in an immersion setting. What we do find is that those children who speak the home language or the minority language in their homes are going to be more able in that language. So often the children who have, say, English at home, German at school, will be highly proficient in an academic type of language. They can function extremely well in the classroom. They can get their ideas across in the classroom. They can do maths in that language. They can talk about the life cycle of a whale in that minority language, but they may be more comfortable, for example, at home or with other kids to play in English. Of course, you can put weights in the scale to prevent that happening by organising lots of play dates with minority language speakers, but we do find that there is that difference because it's different contexts of learning for the language. The 90-10 model does typically end up with stronger levels or a more balanced bilingual than a 50-50 program does. And we see in those programs certainly the development of tolerance, sensitivity and equalisation in terms of their cultural understanding and social abilities. I think I've already touched on this. A lot of parents I know about bilingual schools say, oh, well, what are they speaking in the playground? If they're not speaking German in the playground, then, the program's not working. As I said before, it will change. And what we actually want these children to be is multilingual. We want them to know which language to use with whom, in what situation. So you'll find, say, at a school like the German school, what you want to hear in the classroom is the children swapping. So if they see the teacher that speaks German with them in class, you would expect them to be speaking German with them. Then they might turn around to another child who prefers English as their first language. They'll speak English to that person. Then they'll spin around and speak German in another setting. I observed once at a school a really lovely game where the children actually did the instructions for the game in English, but they played in German because they decided the Germans were, the characters were German speaking characters. So they had this lovely switching between, if they were talking about negotiating what could be played and how it would be played, that would be in English, and then they'd all switch over to German to be their characters in their game. So finally, I just wanted to end with a few bilingualism myths that have really been around since the 60s, where a lot of research was done on underprivileged children who were bilingual, and the fact that they were not performing we were told that was because they were bilingual when it wasn't. It was due to their underprivileged status in the late 60s. So bilingualism is not the source of underachievement in school. If your child is not performing at school, there may be other reasons for that, and it's very, very important to look at those reasons. This is very important in an Australian context, where we had some bilingual programs in the Northern Territory for Indigenous people. They were underperforming, and unfortunately the bilingual program got cut, when in fact it wasn't the bilingualism that was the issue. There were other issues of lack of privilege, lack of underprivileged status that was causing those issues. Majority language acquisition is not impaired by bilingualism. I've talked about that. Bilingual children do not necessarily speak later than monolingual children. Language is very, very similar to when a child learns to walk, right? They will learn language. Some will speak later, some will speak earlier. It depends on that child and what their brain is doing and focusing on at that particular stage. I have my now 16-year-old who spoke very, very early, very, very fast and a lot. And then my second child, who also is bilingual, spoke a lot later, but they're both fine. And that was more personality than it was about their abilities in the language, or about the fact that they were bilingual. Bilingual children are also not more intelligent than monolingual. So I often find this is a difficult one. Although you have all of these benefits through bilingualism, those benefits can be achieved through other areas, but they're sort of, if you've got the opportunity for your child to be multilingual, then you've got access to those activities or those opportunities for your child to build their cognitive, social and cultural intelligence. That's all I've got for you today.
Thank you so much. Fantastic insights. And the good news for everyone is Avril is going to stay with us for the question and answer session at the end. So thank you so much for spending all this time with us this morning. And yeah, so just pop your questions for Avril in the questions and answer section, and we will come to them for sure at the end of the section. Now our next agenda point is going to be the live interview about our bilingual remote learning program. And I would like to warmly welcome our curriculum coordinator and specialist teacher, Alana King, today. Good morning, Alana. Great to have you here.
Morning, Johanna. It's great to be here.
Alana, could you please start by introducing yourself?
Yep, not a problem. As Johanna mentioned, I'm the curriculum coordinator here at the Deutsche Schule Melbourne. I've been here for about 5 years now, and I've taught everything from prep English to grade 3 science to year 6 French. My background is in language acquisition and language assessment, and I've got experience in bilingual settings both in Australia and Germany, and come from a German-English bilingual background.
That's very comprehensive. Thank you, Alana. Schools had to return to their remote teaching program beginning of term 3, actually because of the second wave of COVID-19 in Greater Melbourne. So instead of welcoming our students on site, we had to virtually welcome them back from the holidays for the second phase of remote learning. How was it, Alana, to switch back again to the remote learning program?
Well, obviously we would have preferred to be able to greet our students face to face. But even before the first round of lockdowns started, we were watching what was happening in Germany and in other countries. And the feeling was that sooner or later, Australia would have to go into lockdown as well. So we spent a lot of term 1 putting our processes in place and making sure we had the right technological solutions, that our families had access to technology. So our first lockdown, the transition into online learning was quite smooth. And we used what we learned from the first lockdown to fine-tune what we were doing for the second lockdown and put greater emphasis on how we keep the children socially engaged with the program that we have.
Yeah, and tell us a bit more about the bilingual remote learning program at Deutsche Schule Melbourne. How does it look like?
Well, we made a conscious choice to try and keep the structure of the day similar to what we have on campus, because we felt that having the same structures and having that continuity would be a great feeling of safety for the students and help them to actually make that transition. So our usual day starts off with a short Morgenkreis in the morning where the students get together with their class, and online they get together with their teacher and their other classmates in a Zoom meeting. And in this Morgenkreis, they greet each other, they have a small social time, and they talk about their plan for what's happening for the day. So they go through the timetable, what classes they'll be having, what work is expected of them, whether anybody's having any particular issues, celebrating birthdays or significant achievements offline. So it's that transition into the day. So it gives the children a chance to, even though they're not physically changing from home to school, it gives them that chance to feel mentally like they're transitioning. It gives them a chance to connect with the other people in the class and feel like they're ready for what's coming for the day. And then the rest of the day will involve around about 2 Zoom meetings, and then the rest of the time will be working through tasks offline.
Cool, sounds very good. And how do you, Abby was talking about the German immersion before. How do you ensure this German immersion during the remote learning, especially for those families who do not speak any German at home?
Well, that's absolutely important to keep in mind. And as I said, with the Morgenkreis, the social time at the start of the day, that's actually run by German teachers in German. So the students actually start their day with the German social immersion where they talk about what's happening. And then throughout the day, their classes will be in German. So Avril was talking about how we have the overweighted German language part in the younger years. And so at prep, it starts out at 80-20, where 80% of their classes are in German. And that goes for the online classes as well, and the Zoom meetings and the activities that they do. 80% of that is in German. The way we deliver our classes when we're not in Zoom allows us to include instructional videos and written and verbal instructions. So the classroom teachers will do those in their native language, and 80% of that is going to be in German. So they've got the visual input, they've got the oral input. And then for students where the teacher has identified that that's still not quite enough support, there's opportunity for small group and one-on-one work with the German native speaker to help support their progress.
Okay, and is there any difference thinking about like the year levels, like you were mentioning prep years or year 6? How does it differ?
Well, there's obviously a difference in the capability of the students. So the older students are more tech savvy and confident using devices. The younger students need a little bit more support with that. But in terms of their actual learning, younger students need more hands-on activities. So we've got some work samples that we'll show afterwards where you can see the types of activities that the students have been doing and how it's taking the concepts from class but using them in a very hands-on, interactive way.
Okay, thank you for that. Many parents these days are concerned also with screen time. How do you balance online and offline activities during the remote learning program?
Well, there needs to be some form of online schooling for contact between the teacher and the student. We ask that students attend the Morgenkreis session every morning and then their compulsory Zoom meetings throughout the day. But there's usually only 2 meetings per day, so 2 lots of 45 minutes. And then the rest of the work, the students can choose to do either online or in offline mode. The platform that we have for handing out the work and for the students to submit allows for everything to be printed off. So they have the online instructions and tasks that they can do if they want to do them online, or the parents have the ability to print them if they would rather their students had less screen time. And then within the activities themselves, there's a mix of ones that are more sedentary, sitting down, writing type activities, and then ones that are hands-on, moving around.
Sounds very well balanced. During the first remote learning phase, this program was new and exciting for the students. Now, during the second phase, how do you actually keep the students academically engaged?
Well, anybody who's had to work from home knows about the lockdown fatigue that Melbourne's going through at the moment. But one of the key ways that we keep the students engaged is by providing what's missing from their life during lockdown, and that's social contact. So the children really enjoy coming to the Zoom lessons because it's their chance to connect with their friends. Because depending on how much screen time they're allowed to have at home, they may not have as much contact with their friends as they like. And social learning is also a really important way for the students to learn. So within classes, often, as well as having a short instruction session, we can actually put the students into breakout rooms where they work in pairs or small groups. And that gives them a chance to work on their social learning. So co-creating definitions of things, problem solving together, working on longer term assignments within that small group setting. And they really enjoy that. Other things that we do is by providing the variety of online and offline tasks, the students have a bit of a change up every now and then, so it's not repetitive doing the same types of tasks over and over. And with the older years in particular, giving them a choice of what they want to do. So you will have a topic, you'll have a task, but there'll be different ways that they can go about doing it, or they might have different choices within that topic of what they want to learn about. And having that choice gives them ownership over the learning that they have and makes them more likely to keep going because they've chosen something that actually interests them rather than having it dictated to them by the teacher.
And usually when we're on site, students across all year levels engage during the breaks. How do you keep this across student community alive during the remote learning?
Yeah. Well, we've spoken about how they keep it alive within the class itself, but one of the strengths of DSM is on the playground, you'll often see children from different year groups interacting with each other. And that is hard to replicate online, but some of the things that we have is where students are learning a similar topic, you can actually run those two classes together as a combined class and have students from different classes working in small groups together. We've done that with the 5/6s in history, and the feedback from the students was that they loved having a chance to talk to somebody new and working with people that they hadn't had a chance to before. The grade 6s have a buddy program with the grade 2s for reading, where they pair up and read each other's stories. So that's strengthening those friendships and keeping those alive in the online environment. And we also have, usually at school on Friday afternoons, an assembly. Bernice mentioned earlier about the student of the week and how every student in the school works towards a similar goal within the capacity of their age. And then students are selected who have done a great job of embodying that. And usually in assembly, they would stand up the front and then the people would cheer and acknowledge their achievements. And we've tried to keep that alive online by having the teachers make a video about the students who have done really well. And the students actually get to submit who within their class they think has done a great job. And yeah, we slice that together, make a video. And so we have this virtual assembly that the children can see, and they get to see their friends from the other year levels and see how well they're doing.
Thank you. And from your teacher perspective, which skills are students developing during the remote learning?
Well, the obvious ones there would be skills around technology and how to use it, but also they're learning things like time management. So keeping track of the time to make sure that they're getting to their meetings on time, keeping track of how long they're spending on tasks to make sure that it's commensurate to what the task is actually asking and that they're leaving enough time to get everything done. We're seeing a lot of students showing great initiative skills, emailing teachers to say, hey, I need help with this, or I can't make my meeting today because of this. But also I've had students who in a normal classroom setting are quite passive, but with the online learning, they're actually quite active in contacting other people in their class. So if they haven't finished an activity within a lesson that they were working with a partner, they actually off their own bat will contact that person and say, hey, we need to keep working on this. Let's keep everybody on track. And then there's a lot of self-discipline about making sure that when you're on Zoom, you are present and paying attention and that you're submitting your work instead of just half doing it and letting it sit there. So it's a lot around personal responsibility, self-discipline and time management.
Thank you. And now we're going to share some of the examples actually with all of you. Just share the screen again. So and Alana is going to lead you through those.
So these are two examples from the foundation year, from the prep year. So on one side, they had an assignment to do with dinosaurs. So they've been looking at dinosaurs as their integrated studies topic. And the students got to choose their own dinosaur. So we have that element of choice there. And then research it using books that they have. We also have access to online German libraries. So the students can be reading, but also use that for their research. And then they had to create a presentation for the class based on their favourite dinosaur. And then on the other side, we have a science experiment. So a few weeks ago, we had National Science Week, and every day the prep teacher was doing a demonstration science experiment that the students could then go and do at home, either the same experiment or involving a similar concept, depending on what materials they had access to. This is an example of a grade 2 maths activity. So the students here are working on addition for the concept of multiplication. And the idea here was to break up the household items that they had into even groups to explore how you can add a certain amount of things together to make a number, or you can view them as a group. So it's looking at the core mathematical concepts, but making it a very hands-on offline activity to give the students a concrete sense of how the mathematics of addition and multiplication work. This is a grade 3 engineering, so from the integrated studies unit. The idea was to build a tower using things that you had at home. And so this involves not only knowledge of structure and balance, but also problem solving, because how do you deal with the fact that you've reached the top of what you can reach by yourself? How can you keep building your tower and having to think a little bit outside the parameters of the task itself in order to really make it what you want it to be? And as we can see from this picture, she's got a nice solid base that's been built up, and the only reason that she's stopped is because she's hit the roof and physically can't go any further.
So can you give us some more insights on that one, Alana?
Yeah, so that was another of the grade 3 construction activities, and they had to build a house of cards. And in this, she's not only built a house of cards, but she's made it solid enough that she can put all the different weights on it. So we're looking there at the properties of different materials and how you can use shape to make things more solid.
Cool. Let's look at the next video. We brought some more for you.
Put this down. A marble, yeah. And we're gonna see if it reaches the end. This is so much marble. Go. It's going down. It's going. Halfway through, it's going
Okay, so that was another of the engineering building activities, and you can see that we've got 3 different types of activities that the children could choose from. And that's a great example of using what the children have at home to create an engineered solution to how do we make our marbles go down the run.
So some music, what was that all about, Alana?
So this was an activity that was based around the concept of music not being just played on an instrument, but being able to be made from any item that can make a sound. And it's based on the work of John Cale. And the title of it is Breakfast Walk, and it's all the sounds associated with breakfast put together in a composition. So it's in a way that makes sense, but only using the sound. So we could listen to that and understand the story that's being told through the sounds that she's chosen.
Thank you so much, Alana, and thanks everyone for listening to our examples here. I really enjoyed the interview, and I think everyone could get a lot of insights, valuable insights from you, Alana. Thank you so much, and I'm looking forward that you're going to also be at the Q&A section. So if you have any questions to Alana, she will be around. Thank you, Alana.
Thank you, Johanna.
Now, our next agenda point is the enrollment process with Stephanie Dietrich. And I would like to also warmly welcome Stephanie.
Hello, welcome. Yes, I will walk you through the enrollment process. If you have questions afterwards, write them in the Q&A section as well. So, applications can be handed in any time after a child is born, although I recommend handing them in as soon as possible to make sure you are on the first round of enrollment interviews, and you also benefit from little surprises along the way. The enrollment process itself starts 18 months before the children start school, and I will get in touch with the families to arrange an enrollment interview with the principal. But if you can't make it into the 18 months prior school slot time, you don't need to be discouraged. So if we have capacity, we are very happy to offer school places any time of the year. Anyway, so during the enrollment interview, we would like to get to know the family and see if the expectations from both parties are aligned. If we are able to offer the family a spot, I will get in touch with them, give them a celebratory phone call, and send over the paperwork. And as soon as the offer has been accepted, I will send out the confirmation, which is the final step in joining the DSM community. Johanna?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you so much, Stephanie, for sharing the process with us. And also, Stephanie's going to stay with us for the Q&A section at the end. And she's happy to answer all your questions. And if there are questions which are more kind of on an individual level, I'm also sharing again her contact details. Just take a screenshot or a photo if you haven't been anyway in contact with Stephanie so far. And now we've reached our Q&A session, and I would like to warmly welcome our business manager, Barbara Walsh, who will guide you through the Q&A session today.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome also from my side. I'm the business manager at Deutsche Schule Melbourne and been with the school for quite a number of years. I will take you through the Q&As. I can see we've already received some questions. Please feel free to load anything on there that comes to mind. And some questions are related, so I might bundle some together where it makes sense to do so. Others, if they are very individual, we might answer them individually. Steffi is certainly available for emails afterwards as well. So just in the interest of addressing those questions to the group first that are of most interest. If you'd like to, you can thumbs up a question as well, if that's one that you're particularly interested as well, and that will guide us a bit through the session to say what are the most urgent questions or the ones of most interest. So let's get started and have a look at what we've got. I might just initially hand back to our principal. There are a number of questions pertaining to school growth. Maybe Bernice, you can give us a little bit of perspective where we are at Deutsche Schule Melbourne in terms of school development, the sizes we have now. There was a question about how many students do we have? Have we reached the maximum that we can take, or is there still some opportunity there? And how many streams we're running in the primary school at the moment? And are there plans for secondary school and IB program? I'll hand over to you, Bernice. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Barbara. We are in the lucky situation that our school keeps growing and we still have some capacity at this point, which is great. So while our higher year levels from year 3 on are just one stream, the lower year levels keep growing and growing. So we have 2 streams at the moment. The foundation year this year being an exception, it's just 1 stream, but it's looking good for the future, so to speak. And that also means that we are very heavily planning on our secondary school as well. We are already in the planning stage, but I think I read in the question sections already that people have read that we are aiming for an IB diploma at the end. And that also comes with student number requirements. So we need to make sure we have enough students in the higher year levels to actually grow into a secondary school, which we hope will be the case within the next 5 years or so. That's just a vague number, but that is going to happen at some point, and we're very excited about that. The IB diploma that we will be offering will be a mixed language IB diploma. That means that at least 4 subjects in the diploma years have to be taken in German language. That's actually a very excellent diploma because it is internationally recognized, and also because it's 4 subjects in German, there's no problem transitioning to German universities afterwards. So yeah, just we'll keep you posted and you keep your eyes peeled and we'll update you as we go.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Bernice. I'll just might click some of those questions away as we have answered them to reduce the number there. There was also a question that would be very suitable for our Principal of Teaching and Learning, Mary Gallivan, that is about a couple of topics actually. One very particular one to this time was, I'm not quite sure how far we are there, to look at the impact COVID-19 had for our future foundation year students starting next year. And if we, I suppose that there was worry in that question to say, is there a catching up, or are there things that children have missed out, and can we as a school help to address those issues?
Yes, it's a good question that I think most schools are looking into at the moment. And what we regularly do at school is that we have standardized testings that we look and compare the students to regular benchmarks, and in Germany and Australia, that we can see where the kids are at and if they need a little bit of catch up, or if they're where they're at, because all students are different and their home environments are very different at the moment. In regards to the foundation year for next year, the teachers are busy looking at different ways where we could introduce our students if we needed to remotely, but let's hope that's not the case. But they've had a successful program so far, and the kids enjoy the sessions that they have with the teachers. And in order to prepare them, just in case that was necessary, we would have transition days that we could run remotely and have hopefully in person as well. So we'd have a combination of different transition days for the students so that they were prepared in case we were into remote learning, and standardized testing when the kids all come back to see where everybody's at and if we need any forms of intervention, or if they are where they are, which would generally happen in a normal school setting anyway.
Okay, thank you, Mary. You might just hang on there for a moment. There was another question, how teachers engage with the students, and I think that was also a bit maybe from the perspective of running the bilingual program. How does it look like in the different class levels?
I think that the teachers build up a strong relationship with the students, and it's not all academic, as you can imagine. That's very important to build up a rapport with the students, and it's not only in the classroom that they build up rapport with the students. I think we spoke about and being out on the yard and in playtime and in fun activities as well. And part of that socialization is how you build up the relationship with students in general. And they have their jokes with the teachers that they can carry out onto the playground and socializing as well. They have their classroom goals and activities. During the remote learning period recently, they created challenges for the teachers. So the teachers, some of the German teachers were challenged to eat Vegemite, which wasn't their favorite thing to do, but our teachers love getting involved and building up this relationship with the students. And that's all done in our native language, whether it be German or English. And this is the way that the students build that relationship up with the teachers. Sorry, I just can't hear you, Barbara.
Sorry, just stay on there for a minute longer. What about gender equality? Is this something that is close to the heart of the school? And are teachers educated in that area and how to teach about gender equality?
Yes, definitely. And we've even had run special programs in collaboration with our parent community, where we've run programs to look at, for example, typical professions, and say we've invited police officers, nurses, firefighters, doctors, photographers, and we discussed with the students whether they think that this is a male or a female profession, and then we invited special guests in so that they get engineers, all kinds of different parents who came and spoke to the students to show that, hey, look, everybody can do this. And they're definitely, when we have our sports lessons, they don't like the boys versus girls. They want to make sure that the girls play soccer. We look at the great examples of the German and Australian female soccer teams to show that, and the kids, you know, they let us know as soon as they think something might not be right, and we look into it to make sure that we discuss it, and we check that we're doing everything, and we're definitely equal there, I think.
I think so too. I hope that answered the question for the participant. In terms of, can you talk a bit, you've been doing this for many years, Mary, about all these lovely things, not directly in the curriculum, but camps and excursions, you know, special event days, particularly in the sporting area, athletics days, swimming days, also probably extracurricular program might be worth a mention there. Could you elaborate a little bit around that?
Yes, we do participate in inter-school sports, which is really important for the students, because we get to socialize with other schools in the area, and we play together as a team. And at the moment that's on hold, but we're part of the Brunswick Sports District, and then the students we have swimming, or we have soccer, or we have lacrosse, a whole range of different sports. And that leads us to, we have great days like our school athletics day, which is absolutely amazing. And we have all parents getting involved if they want to, and they help measure how far the children jump and things like that. And then that leads to our we have family breakfast towards the end of the year, where the students help get involved, and we promote active travel within the community. And often we have student representative council, and they're very active in setting up the days, and of course they have guidance from the teachers, but we love to hear their ideas, and we try to involve them to make the day about them, and also for our parents and school community as well.
Okay, thank you very much, Mary. I might just quickly tag back to Bernice. There was a question that is close to her heart, and this is all about what do we do at the school in terms of religious education, ethics, and the like.
Yeah. So at our school, children or families have the choice to either attend ethics or religious education lessons. They can also have a look at both and then decide what they prefer if there's not a strong preference within the family. In regards to the religious education, we have a close cooperation with the German Lutheran Trinity Church, who occasionally sends educators as well to tell the stories and work with the children on the religious education curriculum. And parallel to that, the ethics lessons take place. Normally, I'd say the topics like families, friendships, things like that, they are taught in parallel, with only the exception that the religious education lessons will have the background with stories from the Bible to make clear what point you're wanting to teach, while the ethics lessons are not with the religious emphasis. However, we also speak about personalities, like that might be something that only the German people in this session know, like St. Martin, for example, because that's about helping people, helping strangers actively, and that's not just something that's helpful in the religious education lessons, but also in the ethics lessons if you want to teach about helping each other. Yeah, so there's the choice, and also the opportunity to have a look at both before you decide.
Wonderful, thank you very much. I've got, maybe I can bring Alana a little bit back onto here as well. Can you tell us, I'm not sure if we covered this enough, a little bit about camps and excursions and how they relate to curriculum, maybe a little bit what year levels go on camps or excursions, and what type of things that we do.
Yep. So with camps, we have a camp for the grade 5s and the grade 6s, and it depends on the year, but usually that's a team building and personal strength type camp where we go away for a couple of days into a remote setting. So we've been down in the Otways. We've had, I'm trying to remember where the camp was before that. Yeah, but it's usually in an outdoor setting. So we go and do like team building challenges or obstacle courses, farm visits, that sort of thing. The grade 4s have a sleepover at Science Works as their camp. So that's just a one-night event. So that fits in with their science unit, and then you go to Science Works after school, sleep there overnight, and then the following day is a series of workshops at Science Works. For the other year levels, we do things like traffic safety with the grade 1s and grade 2s, where they go to traffic school for half a day and learn about traffic safety and bike safety and practice riding around and obeying street signs and things like that. So most of the excursions that we do are built into what the students are learning in class. So it's complementing what's happening in the classroom based on the topics that they're doing.
Okay, thank you very much, Alana. I might just ask Bernice to come back in the picture to talk a little bit about our parents and our school community. What sort of opportunities are there for parents to get involved in the school? I know there are many. I'm just trying to think how we can not forget to mention anything. Could you elaborate a little bit on that?
I'll try my best, because there's actually lots of opportunities. The most important things is, I'd say, we have our parents that do the reading with the children. So we have the German parents coming in, do some reading with the kids in German. And of course, the Australian or English international parents doing the English reading with the kids. We do have class parent representatives that work closely with the class teachers and organize fun things for the class, for example, but also are always welcome to have a chat with the leadership team about ideas, what we can do to enhance the school experience. We, under normal circumstances, have a lot of events, which unfortunately have to take place in an alternative environment this year. But yeah, so normally Christmas markets, and what did we have? We had a flea market as well. Just great things like picnics or things you can do in the park. Our parents are very, very active and very great at organizing fun things. And also what's really important and really dear to my heart as well is that the current parents usually do some welcome activities for the new parents when their kids come to our transition days. So keep our fingers crossed that we don't have to do that in a remote environment this year. But that's something that's really fantastic. So everyone feels welcome and part of the DSM family immediately.
Yeah. I think we can also mention we've got great events, like the biggest one being the Christmas market every year that unfortunately will not take place in the same form, but the school is thinking about what we can do for the Christmas market and for our fans that are coming every year, so that we're not quite in the dry there, but have that a little bit going as well. Thank you very much. Now, the last question I've got here, I'm not quite sure yet. I think it's yours as well, Bernice, don't go as yet, is that question around children starting at our school that may not bring any prior German language knowledge with them. And how do they do in their first year of school? Is there anxiety during that transition? Maybe just paint a little bit of picture here as well of what that normally looks like.
Well, normally, so from the past years, I've been at the school for 5 years now, I haven't experienced children having anxiety in their first year at our school. The transition lessons are really helpful with that. So by the time they actually start school, they know most of their classmates, they know the teacher, they know us, the leadership team as well, because they had their interviews with us. And there really wasn't any separation anxiety or stress about the languages thing at all, because as Abby mentioned earlier as well, we always have a quite good mix of monolingual German children, English-speaking children, and bilingual children in the classes. So there's always someone to translate, and they know they can talk to the teacher in their stronger language, and the teacher will understand. And they know the teacher might answer in their native language, but they will ask somebody for help to translate. So there hasn't been any issue with that in the past years, really.
Yeah, so children are not forced to speak the language at the beginning at all, so you must do this before you get an answer or anything like that.
No, not at all. Not at the beginning. However, if you're in year 4 and had quite an intensive volume of German and you're just lazy, we might ask you to repeat the sentence in German.
Wonderful. I'm not sure if it's worth bringing Abby quickly back into here as well. Abby, have you got experience in children learning a new language, and how quickly this can happen maybe in that very first foundation year?
Good question. I think it's similar to the same thing with walking. Different children will learn at different rates, but as Bernice said, the key thing is that language can't be, it has to be something that they love and that they associate with certain relationships. That's what language is, you know, we speak to build relationships with each other. So the key for that is that they feel comfortable in an environment to initially to speak, to respond in their own language, and that's, you're already halfway there. If they've understood what the teacher has said and they're interacting with the teacher, then that's lovely. But and then eventually the children, what actually usually happens, even within sort of a month, for some 3 months, for some 6 months, they'll start to unconsciously be replying in the additional language for those students. They don't actually realise they're doing it, and that's a great sign that it's become something that's sort of not that they're purposefully doing. It's just part of what is natural to them and natural to their brains. So certainly within that first year, you would expect them to start speaking or a couple of words, or even often they start with the song actually, and especially because that prep year, year one is often about singing and routines, so they'll come up with those words first. A number of children, including children who've been in kindergarten in a bilingual environment, you'll be driving along and suddenly this child behind you in the car seat starts singing in another language. And the child often doesn't realise they're doing it. It's just something that's coming to their heads, and that's a good sign. So the key is that the language has to be linked to positive relationships, and then eventually linked to their identity, that it's part of their overall makeup as a person, that they're bilingual speakers, and that additional language speaking, or that German language speaking in this case, is part of who they are. And then, yeah, they'll carry that language on through life.
Wonderful, thank you, Abby. I think that's exactly the observations that we're making too. I'm always amazed when the foundation year starts. That first term is really significant when they come in. Some of them come in with no German knowledge at all, and by the end of term 4, they're putting words in, or already at the stage of making small sentences, which is just breathtaking how quickly it all develops. And it's most significant to notice in that very first year. Then it's a gradual increase, so it's not so prominent, I suppose, than that first year. And I think it's always nice. We have usually end of year celebration where the children are performing in front of the parents too, and especially for those parents that themselves are not German speakers, it's quite a revelation when they see their children then, you know, using the other language quite easily. So that is definitely wonderful. Thank you very much, Abby. Now, I'm not quite sure, Alana, I think, wanted to add something to a question that was posed earlier. Is that correct, Alana?
I just wanted to add to the prep question, because I actually have the experience of teaching the preps. And what we found works really well is that on the transition days before they start, we have an English-speaking teacher as well as the German-speaking teacher to help the students orient themselves with what's going on. So on those days, they get to know their teacher, they get to know some of the routines that they'll be following later on, and they get to know the other people in their class. But we also buddy them up with a student from year 1. So they will see that student at the beginning of every day, because the classes will do Morgenkreis together, and then they have those for the break times. So that is also the extra support to help them cope with the German that's outside of what's happening in the academic classroom. But in the academic classroom itself, the English and the German teachers will follow the same procedures and the same routines, so that they're getting the input in English as well as in German, with the routines around the classroom and class expectations and behaviour expectations. And they have the confidence of, yes, I understand what's going on in this setting, even if I don't understand the words, because I've had that in my native language and I've understood that, and I can see that this is just the same. And then they start connecting the words and the concepts together, and that actually helps them learn the language to then use for the content within the German-based lessons.
Fabulous, that's very valuable input there, Alana. Thank you for adding on. And I think this brings the Q&A session to an end. If you have any questions, further questions, there was none now in terms of enrollment. You've got Stephanie's email address there. Please feel free to email her at any time. Also, if things still come up a little bit later, maybe after this open day, some more questions develop, again, these can be emails to Steffi. Other than that, I would like to say thank you for putting all your questions in, and I'd like to just briefly give back to Johanna to conclude the open day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Barbara, and thanks to all of our fabulous speakers today. It has been so full packed with insights. I hope you all enjoyed it. And of course, we want to get better. So we set up a short survey for you. So your feedback is very valuable to us. And when we close the session now, this is going to appear in your browser. So we would highly appreciate if you can just answer our survey quickly. It's just 2 minutes, and it will really help us to get better. And I would like to close today's Virtual Open Day. I hope you learned a lot, you had a lot of fun, and we absolutely hope to see you in person soon. Stay safe and take care. Goodbye.